Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith. Today, I am talking about Dead Jack and the Pandemonium Device by James Aquilone. This is book 1 of 3 in the Dead Jack series. It is from Homunculus House. There you go. Try to keep those reflections off of there. Look at that beautiful cover. I absolutely love it. There's Oswald, the homunculus. That's Dead Jack. It's basically, Dead Jack is a zombie private eye in the city of Pandemonium. And we actually have a nice little map here. We'll see how much of this we can see. There's a map of Pandemonium. Shows a bunch of different areas. And Pandemonium is like a sideways dimension. It's a different dimension, but it's sort of equivalent to the New York City area. There's one point, there's actually a location named Coney Island, and at one point, Jack says this is, it's on the other side, it's Brooklyn. So it's difficult to give you a nutshell for this book. Because we just sort of start, we meet Jack, he's jonesing for some fairy dust, and he's going to meet a leprechaun that he's gotten fairy dust from before, and this sort of causes some things to happen, which leads to some other things to happen, which leads to some other things to happen, which leads to eventually the main plot. So, right off the bat, I actually haven't, I finished this yesterday as of this recording, but I didn't put my rating on Goodreads yet, but I believe I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 stars. I liked it. I'd go as high as 3.5 if I could, but I'm not going up to 4, which is I really liked it. It's close, maybe even 3.75 stars. But I don't feel like at this point going all the way up to 4. I like the character of Dead Jack, and we get a little tiny bit of backstory for him. We know that, without giving too much away, 70 years ago during World War II, when he was human, and in the real world, he was being tortured and experimented on. And that's sort of a through line throughout the story, and I assume it's going to be a through line throughout the 3 books. I do kind of like that a lot of detective fiction, at least in my experience, private eye fiction, not all. There are quite a few private eye novels that kind of start one of 2 ways. Either the detective is just finishing up a case and, some shenanigans happen, and then they go to their office and they get the case that's going to be the story that we're in for. Or they're just in their office and the case comes along. Basically, that's very basic. I know not every detective story follows that formula. But that's sort of the tropes of the genre. So I like that I'm going to take a quick look, if you don't mind. I don't think that's it. Let's see. Well, okay. It's not as far in as I thought. Well, definitely that one. Okay, this has got to be compelling video for you. Let's go with right here. We'll go with this. So it's not until page, we'll say 57 or so, that Jack gets the case that's going to lead to the biggest crux of the story. And that's out of, well, we're going to skip that part. That's out of 182 pages. So, and it's almost page 60. So almost a third of the book before we actually get to the thing that's going to drive the story forward. And actually, I'm going to tell you what. Slight spoiler here. The case that Jack gets, find 52 missing cats. That's all I'm going to say. But that's what leads to the craziness of the last 2/3 of the book. But I like that. I like that that's how this story is told. That Jack just gets into one little scrape after another. It's one little scene after another. But it helps to build the world. And this is a world of magic, of monsters. So that Jack's a zombie. Oswald here is, Jack calls him a homunculus, but he doesn't actually know what he is. But there are vampires and werewolves and leprechauns and unicorns and trolls and ogres and witches, griffins and demons and all sorts of stuff. So any type of supernatural or magical folkloric type of creature seems to be here. So through that first third of the book, we're learning about the world. We're learning about the inhabitants of the world. We're getting hints at who Dead Jack is. We don't know really anything about Oswald at this point. And then even once at that 1/3 point where he gets that case, finding those 52 missing cats, it's still a little while before we get to the crux, the whole Dead Jack and the Pandemonium Device. It's a while before we get there, and I enjoyed that. Jack is a fun character. I personally think he treats Oswald a little poorly, a little too poorly. We meet some fun characters. It's a very fun book, and it's funny. It's a lighthearted. I guess, does it fall into the urban fantasy? Definitely supernatural noir kind of thing. And I like the tagline basically on the back: a detective with no soul, a sidekick with no brain, a world full of monsters. And Jack is a drug addict because if he doesn't take the fairy dust, he becomes basically a flesh-eating zombie. The fairy dust helps him keep it under control. So, yes, for the main story, I found it quite enjoyable. A nice introduction to this world. Now, there is a short story at the end that's just this quick little case that Jack was hired for. And it's fine. It's fun. Things go wrong. Laughs are had. But what I found really interesting is after that, we have a field report. I believe that is what they call it. This is the account Oswald filed after his mission. So, in the short story, I don't think this is really a spoiler, Oswald goes away for 4.5 hours. According to Jack, it's been 4.5 hours. Jack sends Oswald off to do something, and he comes back 4.5 hours later. The field report is Oswald's account of that 4.5 hours. And I found it very fun, and I like the way that this was done in the book. That we get this short story of a quick little case that Jack worked on, and then we get that field report that fills in what Oswald did in that time when he was off the page. So it was a lot of fun. Definitely 3.75. Now, some people might say, just round it up to 4. But I'm not going to do that. It's my channel. I'll do what I like. But should I round it up to 4 on Goodreads? That's the question. Maybe I should. Maybe I will. So, for us, we know it's a 3.75. I think I'm going to round it up to 4 on Goodreads. Simply because, at work, when it comes to my pay, and they don't round things up, I get ticked off. So I'm going to be generous. And I'll round it up to 4 on Goodreads, but you and I know it's a 3.75. But anyway, that's Dead Jack and the Pandemonium Device by James Aquilone from Homunculus. There was a little blur on there. Homunculus House. Little Oswald there. He's cute. I like Oswald. Oswald's a great character. Yeah, I say check it out if you like this kind of thing. I have the other 2 books. And by the time this video comes out, the Kickstarter will be over. But James Aquilone has a thing on Kickstarter called Dead Detective Society. And there's going to be a Dead Jack story in that. I backed it. This is his 4th Kickstarter that I'm aware of. I've backed all 4. And it's gonna have a new Cal McDonald story from Steve Niles. I think Jonathan Mayberry has a story in it. Bunch of great authors. I can't remember everybody. Nancy Collins is gonna have the first new Sonia Blue story in ages. So if you like that kind of thing, maybe go to Kickstarter. Even though it's done, I think you could probably get set up for notifications for there's late pledge stuff I think you can do. Not 100% sure, but check it out anyway. Dead Detective Society on Kickstarter. But, yeah, so there you go. That was an odd way for me to end that. My question for this video, are you a fan of, I'm going to go with urban fantasy. I couldn't think of the term for a second there. Urban fantasy or horror noir. Urban fantasy, I think, encompasses, not an expert on this at all, but I think encompasses things like Jim Butcher's Harry Dresden series, Kim Harrison's series that I can't think of right now. Is she the Anita Blake author? Or is that somebody else? But the Sookie Stackhouse books, I think these all fall under urban fantasy. And then there's horror noir, which really focuses on the private eye kind of thing. I'm a fan when it's done right. The more general urban fantasy, I can take it or leave it. Depends on the writer. I read some of the Jim Butcher stuff. I've thought about going back and reading more. Harry Dresden was fine. I do like when it's private eye horror. More so than just, again, things like the Sookie Stackhouse, which I read a couple of those. That's True Blood. That was the TV series. Charlaine Harris, that's who it is. That's the author of those books. I couldn't think of it. And I mean, even though Harry Dresden was a private eye, he was a wizard who was a private eye. They were not my favorite. They were fine. As I said, I might go back and read some more of that. But because I'm such a fan of Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, that kind of hard-boiled detective, Sam Spade and Philip Marlowe, I like it when I have a hard-boiled detective in the horror world. And we have Dead Jack. I actually just bought, if you watched my book haul video from not too long ago, I bought 8 books in the Dan Shamble series. He's another zombie PI. I love the Cal McDonald series from Steve Niles. There's a whole bunch of comics, there's 1 or 2 novels and a bunch of short stories. He's a human, but a PI in a world of monsters. I dig that stuff. But what about you? Is it something that you've read? Is it something that you like? Have you tried it and don't like it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is EricSmith5757. That's Eric with a K. ERIKSMITH 5757. That's all I've got for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.